Hey, it's Matthew. So, welcome, first of all. Well, I don't know where I'm going to go with this, but I'm just I'm feeling the space right now. And I know that I've had a lot of healing from within myself that has occurred since I've been using the RIP app. And, I designed it that way because I really turned within and God showed me that this was something, and I hadn't yet unpacked it all through doing it. But by actually doing it, the turning within yourself to the presence of God within you, seeking the kingdom and its righteousness first, it really takes itself to the deepest part of whatever it is that you're holding on to that is really not in alignment with the Father, the parent mind, and begins to expose it to you so that you can cleanse yourself of these beliefs in trouble, in the dream of terror, the dense fog, as it says in the Nag Hammadi Library in the Gospel of Truth, that sweeps the earth looking for a host. You see, it looks for all of those imperfections within thought, and it dispels them. And so what I would liken it to is, like if you're going to clean your house and get some nasty critters out of there, and you begin spraying bug spray all over the place, or, pest control, they might scatter about for a bit frantically, but it's the end. I mean, they're dying. It's over. That's what happens when you bring the light of wisdom in to your individual thought. And so each card is this type of aphorism. It is you having the agreement with God's word by contemplating the specific wisdom key. It takes you into the pocket, if you will, between the thoughts that usually go on in your habitual left brain, linear logical, down to the pits of hell state of being, where the anxiety mind is always trying to get you to worry, fear, be concerned, doubtful, afraid. All of these world mind conditions, they have no place in existence. In true existence, in God's allness, they have no place. And those are the pests that have been running your life. They've been operating you as if you and them were one and the same, where in reality you are one with the allness of creation, and they have no power, no authority. They are nothing. The entire world is nothing out there. It's you on the road to your own ascension. So this is pretty interesting, even for myself. Like I realized I've just opened a can of whoop ASS, if you will, because this really is allowing me to reach really the deepest levels of humility that I've ever been to, willfully and joyfully doing so. I literally have stepped myself down into of being no importance in the world whatsoever, and no need to be, no concern for any type of approval or safety or control, just to allow myself to be fully governed in the knowledge that I am He. I am this I am. And so God meets me wherever I go. It started happening during 2020 when these lockdowns, I started doing the PTT. God gave me that as a primer technique. And really, that is the real disciplinary primer. And it was so effective, so powerful. It changed my entire environment all around me, including my inner environment. So first it changed my inner environment. Then it changed everything in my outer matching environment. And if you haven't done that yet, that was the precursor to the workshop that we did with the spiritual master, ascended master retreat with Michael Jaco. And that was all free to you if you go to MatthewDavidHurtado.com, my website. Not only can you get the book Trust and get the free course with that, but you also can get the 0 Point course. I created a whole course for this for free that you can watch. And you can order one of the books online because it's an actionable playbook. And you write in it. You write stuff in it that you're going to use. It gives you your own bread from within. And that was actually the introduction to what now became this RIP app. So doing the PTT was really critical along this journey. But as I began doing it, everything started changing. And so here's a gauge for you. If your outer reality is not changing, then your inner, state of being is stuck. Your outer corresponds with your inner. So if you're stuck financially at a certain level, or even going in the wrong direction, going down, if you're stuck relationship-wise and you're not experiencing harmony. See, if somebody is out of harmony with you and you change from within, they have to move out of your reality. Or they fall in line with that harmony. And something else will come in to bring that reflection of harmony to you. Or if it's a health condition, here's the idea. We don't heal, treat, prevent, cure, or diagnose disease. Not what spiritual ministering does. What we do is we reveal God, the allness of God, from the spiritual plane. And that spiritual plane is the reality. Everything else is a subtonality of mortal consciousness, which is an illusion. You have to get this knowledge by experiencing it firsthand. So the tools we create through the ministry that God has given me to give to the world are, in essence, the building blocks, for the daily habits that bring you into this alignment, that allow for you to walk in the new man, as Paul describes, the new man. So really, revisit that PTT. If you have not done PTT, I'm going to tell you more about why you want to do it in a minute, but you can revisit that whole thing for free and begin there. And I would do so even before I release this app in a couple days. It might be out in a week tops, but in a couple days it should be released to everybody, Android and iOS versions. The app is changing my life like rapid fire. Even at the level where I was at with PTT, this is going even deeper. And I'm noticing healing on so many levels. Things that I couldn't have done previously are now happening as a result of me just turning to the kingdom within through the use of this app. So let me tell you a little bit more about the 3 tithe principles, The tithing your talents, time, and treasures, To make a long story short, my ministry was founded on the principle of tithing in terms of your treasures, your dollars, your money. Because I did that. And that's what changed everything for me, and it broke the spine of fear over my financial prosperity. Because once I realized that God would do it, because the faithfulness of the principal law, which is what is operating between you and the Father when you do the tithe, financially speaking, this will allow for God to govern that aspect and area of your life. And most people get well in their bodies when they get well in their pocketbook. Ironically enough, it usually ties into the same type of consciousness, because it's revealing more of God's allness that we actually are doing. And that includes God's qualities of abundance of all good things, health, mobility, those belong to God entirely. We have to lay down our former life of human will and thinking that this meat sack contains any good or bad qualities. So, as our ministry has evolved, I started creating the tools and the skills, the ABC break process, the safe touch technique, the self-entrainment technique, the PTT, and now the RIP app. These are the 5 pillars of this entire ministry. This is how you tithe your talents to the world. Every one of the techniques that have been created are all engineered specifically as a protocol for you to engage in spiritual consciousness, demonstrating the fruits of the Spirit, being in alignment with what God is knowing. And it really is the antipode to the carnal mind in all of its law of envy and strife that captures those who are beguiled in the middle place of human reasoning. So all of the skills that you use and you can integrate into your daily life allow for you to tithe of your talents. I mentioned this in my previous video, that your talents are really your attitude toward life, how you are mirroring the qualities and attributes of God, or you are denying them by turning to, the sins of the flesh, lust, envy, malice, strife. Most people on the earth plane that you will observe are carnally minded people, okay? And so when you begin to recognize that God, being no respecter of persons, means doesn't observe persons. God sees, quote unquote, the heart of man. Well, God sees the free will choice being made in the individualized consciousness, whether this is going into the dream and pushing against, good and evil. That's sin. That's the Adam dream, Genesis 2. Or we come back to the tree of life and we declare that God is all, and we put on our spiritual eyes, and we then spiritualize everything we see, smell, hear, taste, and touch into its true version of its authentic self, the emanation of God. Now, this takes a little work, and that's why we use tools and skills to train ourselves to walk in the Spirit, not in the flesh. And the last thing is, tithing of your time. And that's done through, obviously, reading the Word, meditation, and the seeking within of the kingdom. And so the RIP app is the extraordinary user-friendly tool that uses your very screen that is hypnotizing you and enslaving you over the course of the past, 10, 12, 15 years that the, cell phone has been coming into existence, to lock you in your cell of your mental prism of seeking outside of yourself. And the prince of the air is using the devices to bind you through ignorance of the Father. It's an illusion. It's hypnotism. So you turn within to the Father, and now you can use your very screen to do that through the aphorisms on these cards. And so I've been doing it probably 2 to 3 times a day and spending a total of maybe 15 minutes a day. And by doing this, it's rapidly evolving me from within. And I know it will do the same for you. God gives me these ideas and gives me these downloads, and I can, step into flow state at will, and that's where all this good stuff just kind of pours right out. And the reason why it works, and I want you to get this, is the more humble I've become, the greater the opportunity is, because man can't get anything. Selfishly speaking, there's nothing to get. And so you have not because you ask amiss, and 99% of the world, they're all, looking through the lens of the carnal mind, trying to preserve a life that they were never given. There is no life in flesh. That's a dream. So when we try to preserve that life in the flesh, we estimate our value through all of our accumulations and our network and our knowledge and our youth and all these values that really have here today and gone tomorrow properties, they're nothing. They're vanity in the sight of God. But yet the carnally minded flesh and the mind of this world that most people give their allegiance to through fear and submission, they buckle at the knees at every temptation, and they always seek to get. And getting is really, what are you going to get? There's nothing to get. See, the problem with human will is that when you use it to go get something, it throws the balance of the universe in the twin dielectric out of adjustment. And so therefore, like a pendulum, you push one way and the force pushes the other way to bring it back to a place of rest. And so as you do that, it causes these unintended consequences to squirt right out into your outer experience. So you work like a dog and you slave your way away, life away, and you go make all this money, and then you have to pay it all back through health issues or, some other thing that shows up. Now, why does that happen? Because that's not God's good. That's man's good that man tried to pursue, that man schemed for, that man plotted for. God's good was already fully and freely given, but can only be accessed through a heart of service and through a heart of giving, because that's the mirroring aspect of being God's man. So it works for me in flow state to get this stuff because it's never trying to get anything to myself. I'm trying to give. Yeah, I should call it give. That's a new word. I'm trying to get it to you. Really, that's my focus. When I go to the Lord, I say, God, give me something so good that I can reach the most vehemently bound mortal that is yet seeking the Christ through some form of suffering, has no clue of how to get out of this maze or this conundrum, and give me something to give to them to bring that light through what I'm giving them so that they turn to you, Father, within themselves. Every technique that I teach does that. And so as you use it, now that's your free will. You have to do something about it. What you're actually doing is you're training yourself to automatically just do that. And that's where the magic happens. So after years and years of doing this myself, it's just automatic now. And that's why flow state, I can turn it on like turning on a light switch. But here's the deal. Flow state doesn't happen when there's fear. And when is there fear? When you're trying to preserve your own self, your own safety, your own sense of importance, or anything that the world considers valuable really is a obstruction to the free flow consciousness of divine love. Divine love and self-preservation do not mix. They're like oil and water. Divine love knows that what blesses one blesses all. If I do something for someone else, God will do that for me. I'd rather operate under that law than come into the burden of saying, well, I'm going to have to get something because there's a need and I must meet this need. God didn't engineer you to meet any human needs. I'm sorry to tell you that, but you've been brought up in that lie your whole life. And there's no better way than I know of tithing your time, talents, and treasures to re-educate yourself into the ways of God so that you can repent, come home to the Father, and allow for the Father to take full care of his creation 100% by getting your human will, which is your old self, laying down that old life, out of the way. There it is. Bam. Deal with it. That's what my ministry is about. It's about the skill sets, the mindsets, and the actions, attitudes, and behaviors that you bring yourself home to the kingdom using. I like to create actionable things. that you can engage with. Now, some ministers are excellent at telling stories and telling the Bible stories, and they're really, really powerful. I don't think that's my specialty. You know, I'm a very strategic operator. You know, I can break down building a business into the daily steps and then just kind of know exactly what to do intuitively and scale it right up and just build it. Everything from the concept, the idea, to the funnel landing page, to the, even if products are involved, whatever. I just know what to do because God just gives me the ideas and they just come. And what I love to do more than anything is I love to create the playful gamification of this human, so-called human experience, so that it becomes a spiritual experience. And so then you are fully aware that you are in the world and not of it. So this way, you're not walking blind within the carnal mind, you're walking within the spirit. It's an entirely different feeling and comprehension to see with spiritual eyes and to feel the sense of ultimate freedom within God's care and protection and covenant. And everybody that you see in this entire world has the capacity and the potential to bring that light forth to you. And what I've discovered is that by using the app, the biggest change that's happened within myself is the intercommunication that is going on within me and within my extended world and in those so-called other individuals out there. Love is coming through. People that I would used to argue and fight with in my old life, I literally could come to tears with how much love I have for them now. That's not the old Matthew. The old Matthew is incapable of reflecting that type of God's love. So how did I get to be the new Matthew? Well, by being the beingness itself of the knowledge that I am He. And so as I draw closer to the Father, the fire of wisdom burns off anything unlike itself. And so I get refined in that fire every time I do something to engage with that activity. And so the RIP app is the engagement of that activity. However, you do have to have some level of coherence in what you're looking at with these cards and the aphorism understanding that it's leading you toward. So when the book comes out, that's my primary modus operandi with this book, Love, Living the Good Life, is I'm going to detail what each card means. And that way you will get a comprehensive aha moment if you haven't already received one. And then you can refer from your RIP app to the book and extract that knowledge so that it goes from here into here. And then you have the mystical union and you have the transformation that begins. And it really does happen promptly and efficiently. The light begins to shine through all the pockets of ignorance going on in your thought, because your world is really the thought about people, conditions, circumstances, and events, i.e. judgments, demonstrating the polarities of the twin dialectric in what they call the tension of human life. You know, it's in those tensions between right and wrong, good and bad, in this dialectric, okay, that we so-called live. But yet, that is just a dream of temporal material consciousness. We live in the pure awareness that is back of every good desire, which is the allness of spirit. And so you will be able to back it up into that position and start to qualify everything with perfection in your world. And then you will know through experience what it means to see, feel, and be perfection. That is the goal of goals. And so the book Love, Living the Good Life, I'm going to make it with the best of my abilities and not too complex. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible so even an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old could understand it. There's no reason to try to impress anybody with big words. Just I want it to be understood. Because I want it to be your roadmap to the gnosis, where you get the immediate blessing in the moment that brings about the fulfillment of joy and transforms you in divine love's presence, so that you can't even remember what it was like to be the old you in short order. I can't even remember 3-4 years ago. I'm not that person. And this is not that long ago. And yet it feels like lifetimes apart. And that's what the saying is, that a moment in God's presence, a moment of God's favor, can do more than a lifetime of your labor. Well, let me show you the secret of favor. It's honor going in by taking all power away from the world and giving it back to Spirit within the I am, which is the I am that I am. It is the me, the capital M-E, the allness of Spirit that we all live, move, and have our being in, as individualized consciousness of the allness of that Spirit. We give all power from the material world back to that Spirit, and that's honor to the Father. That favor flows out the moment you do that. And so tithing of your time, talents, and treasures is the protocol secret to unlock favor through honor. I'll talk more about this as we go, and I'm going to keep it short, under 30 minutes here. I think that's good for today.